Hey everybody, welcome back to Insight Tennis Tour Stroke Series. Today we're going to be talking about the one-handed backhand. I've gotten a lot of questions about the one-handed backhand and been asked to do a video on the details of the one-handed backhand, like I've done many on the forehand. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that today. And I want to talk about the key elements to building a tour quality one-handed backhand. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, there's a lot of misunderstandings out there, and we want to dispel some of those things and talk about the correct technique and biomechanics that are used by the best players in the world when they produce their signature strokes. So the first thing that we want to talk about, there's different variations of grips for the backhand. I'm not going to advocate one over another. Find what works for you, but in general, most of the tour players are just rotated up on the racket like this, so you can see my knuckles here. Some of them are a little more extreme than others, but just find kind of what works for you. I think this is a great place to start, okay? Now, once we have the proper grip, the first thing that we want to look at is, if I'm a one-handed player and I'm playing with my forehand, right, then I have my other hand up here on my racket. If the ball comes to my backhand, all I'm going to do is just rotate that racket with my left hand. So I just allow my right hand to just rotate. My left hand is turning the racket to the backhand grip. Now, so the ball comes, I'm here in a ready position, and the ball comes, I'm just rotating my racket, right? Rotate my racket, and then I'm going to just take a hip and shoulder rotation. Notice that I took the racket back with my body, not my hands and arms. And I keep my left hand on the racket. The other thing I want to point out and have you be cognizant of is the racket is well above my hand. In fact, it's almost pointing up into the sky, and I would advocate almost this type of a relationship. There's a huge power source here that we're going to get to later. So, once again, I'm starting in a good ready position here. The ball comes, I'm going to rotate to my backhand grip, hip and shoulder rotation, taking the racket back with my body, not my hands and arms. Now, as I am taking the racket back and I'm getting ready to step into the ball, now the next phase is the racket drop. The racket drops down, but notice I'm keeping, let me do this from the side so you can see, I'm keeping my left hand on the racket all the time. So I'm here, I rotate to the proper grip, hip and shoulder rotation, taking the racket up here, right? And as I drop that racket and come down, now obviously I'm going to be hitting the ball out this way now, right? But just to illustrate it from the side so you can see it, comes down here, I'm going to keep my left hand on the racket clear down to here. Okay, let me do that again. So I'm here, I rotate, hip and shoulder rotation, stepping into the ball, right? And as I'm dropping down, now the racket drop and release to impact happens all in one motion. There's no stop here. So I'm not advocating that you're going to stop your racket and then drop it and stop it again and then start it again. This is all a fluid motion that they slow down, but they don't stop. Okay, so back to what we talked about, ready position, rotate over to the backhand grip, hip and shoulder rotation, and then I'm going to drop my racket down, clear down to here, right, if I'm stepping in, and then I let go and I release back to impact. So racket drop, and then release. I'm making contact with the ball here, right? And I release up to the ball, and then I'm going to extend, so extension out through the target, or out to the target rather, from a lower position to a higher position. And then I'm going to rotate and finish. Okay? Now this little flip that you see at the end here happens at the very end, and too often we think that this happened at impact and it gets misconstrued as such, but it absolutely does not. There is wrist and arm rotation, but it's much less than you probably think, and certainly less than it may appear. So let's go back and review that again. So the key elements to a one-handed backhand. Number one, you've got to have the right grip, or at least this type of a grip. Okay, there are different variations, but that's what I advocate. Number one, good ready position. Once you have the proper grip, hip and shoulder rotation to take the racket back, and notice that the racket is well above my hand. Okay, this is a huge power source. So take the racket back here. As I'm going to step into the ball, the racket starts to drop into position, right? And I keep my left hand on the racket all the way down to here. Then I'm going to release back. Let me step back here so you can make sure that's in the camera lens. All right, so in here, and I'm releasing back and leading with the butt cap of my racket from a lower position up to impact. There's contact point here, right? And then extension. I'm extending out through the ball, allowing my racket to travel out through the ball, and then rotation and finish. Okay? So once I've come to this position here, I'm allowing my racket to drop into position, release back to impact. I'm going to do this in slow motion. And then once I make contact with the ball, I want to maintain that position all the way out through the ball. I'm not allowing my racket to flip over this way, and I'm not allowing my racket to flip up this way. Okay? There is rotation, but it's much slighter and much less than you probably think or realize. Excuse me, the pros hit out through the ball from a lower position to a higher position, but they drive out to their target. Now, there's another misconception out there that I want to talk about here for a minute. I've heard it taught that you want to lift your arm up the back of the ball like this. Lift my arm straight up in the air, okay? First of all, in my opinion, and if you watch the videos you'll see, this absolutely does not happen at the pro level. These guys hit out through the ball.